Well, good evening, listeners, and welcome along to a very special edition of Across the Line with myself, Paul Carroll, here on this Friday, the 17th of April 2026. Munster Senior Hurling Championship is finally here, and over the course of the next hour plus, we're going to be looking ahead to, obviously, Tipperary against Cork in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship on Sunday at 4 o'clock. We're going to be looking ahead to that. We'll be looking ahead to the camogie. We'll hear from Liam Cahill, Ronan Maher. We're going to be hearing from our analysts. We're going to be talking to Willie Maher as well, the national head of hurling. It is a packed, stacked show for you this evening. So we're going to get it underway as soon as we can. A reminder, this show Across the Line on a Friday evening is all with thanks to the Premier Credit Union in Thurles. Some other things to note coming up in the show. We're going to be hearing from Mairead Eviston. We're going to be hearing from Joe Winston from Clonmel Rugby Club. They have a massive game tomorrow later in the show, and we'll round off the show this evening at about 7:30 or just before it with Barry Drake giving us the rundown on the weekend's Greyhound racing action. So before we get started, just wishing the Tipperary minor hurlers the very best of luck. They take on Cork this evening at 7 p.m. in FBD Semple Stadium in Thurles, and Tip play Cork quite a lot this weekend in the camogie and in the hurling, so hopefully James Woodlock and the team can get the job done there this evening in Thurles, so we wish them the very best of luck. We won't really be looking ahead to that match here tonight, given it's getting underway just at 7 o'clock, and we have a lot to get through. But this is an extended edition of Across the Line, and we'll be going till around 7:30. Let's get straight into it. So we spoke at the launch of the Munster Senior Hurling Championship with Tipperary Senior Hurling Captain Ronan Maher. So let's hear my conversation with Tip Captain Ronan Maher right now. Here with Tip Senior Hurling Captain Ronan Maher. Ronan, league is over now, all eyes on the championship, but reflecting back on the start of the year for yourself, missed out at the start with the injury and coming back, and how's this kind of league campaign been for you? Different than normal, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely new to me, I suppose. Definitely, I suppose I was probably out for a bit longer than I'd hoped, but listen, I got 2 good games in it towards the end of the league, so really happy to get the game time in, and listen, I've been training, I'm getting plenty of training in, so just about getting up to match sharpness now, and be happy enough to, I suppose the next 3-4 weeks will be really important for me as well, so yeah, listen, I'm all good now, and like I said, it was good to get the 2 games in. Yeah,
the injury, I think you had surgery maybe November, December time. It's one of those injuries, I think, where it's kind of like fatigue builds up over time, and all you can kind of do is rest it, I think. So how was that kind of period of recovery? Were you able to do much in that time, or how was all that?
I suppose, listen, it wasn't all about rest. I suppose it's just the increase in workload, I suppose, over the years. But listen, I've been looked after really well with our physios, doctors, and the surgeon as well had been really good and put me in the best hands possible. So, like I said, it was all successful and just probably a bit slower coming back than I thought. But like I said, I'm A1 now and just about getting up to the pitch.
What is it? Osteus? Was that what that was? Osteus,
yeah, Gilmore Griner hernia. There's so many different names for it now. To be honest, I'm not too sure. Don't even know how it stems. But like I said, I'm out the other side of it now. So happy enough.
And hopefully that's all behind you now. So the last few weeks, I suppose you've been ramping back up to get into league action, and you have 2 league games under the belt now. How do you feel yourself? Are you where you want to be, or as you said, those next 2-3 weeks probably going to be important for you to get fully back up to speed?
Yeah, definitely. Listen, there's a few things that I'll have to go after over the next few weeks just to get up to the pitch of it, and I suppose getting yourself exposed to that training and into games is the best way possible. So I was lucky to get the 2 league games in, and like I said, I'll try and prepare myself as best possible going through the next 3 weeks. It's a good block and a good opportunity to get that work in now. So thankfully it's heading that way. I suppose it's disappointing not to be in a league final, but it gives us that opportunity to improve on lots of things that we could probably go after the league campaign.
Like, look, going into last year, and even I spoke with Michael Breen in an interview recently as well about motivation. Now you've 3 All-Ireland medals. Last year your screensaver on the phone was the wall, wasn't it, over in the Sarsfield Centre? What's your screensaver now? What's your motivation now?
I suppose as a collective, I suppose we all have we have motivations within the group, and I suppose individually we all have different motivations as well. So listen, I suppose everybody speaks about the back-to-back, but like there's other things that are driving us as a team and as individuals. So I don't think we'll ever be happy with just the 3. You'll always want to go back and get another one. And I suppose, listen, it's been a long time since we won a Munster final, and I'd really like to be back in another one and try and win one. Obviously the campaign is really tough, and you have to be ready to go week on week, but it'd be really nice to get back, try and win another Munster final, but if that doesn't happen, the main aim will be getting out of Munster.
It's funny as well, like, because someone like me sitting here like, oh, what's the motivation? But you put so much time, effort, everything into this that you couldn't but be motivated like for it, that you put so much time into it, you want to get the most back out of it.
We love playing hurling, we love putting on the blue and gold jersey, and you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't enjoy it. And I suppose it's just that competitiveness within all of us. I suppose just going in every night, training, trying to improve as a player and as a collective as well. And like that, the Munster Championship throws loads of challenges at you, so that's an opportunity for us to go after them and hopefully come out on the right side of them. But listen, it's a good dressing room to be in, and like I said, it's an honour for me to put on the blue and gold jersey, and I love going out hurling every day I can. So as long as the body lets me do that, I will.
And is there a difference at all coming in as champions for your perspective, coming in as All-Ireland champions, or is it just back at the bottom of the mountain now like everyone else? And how do you kind of view that? Do you view yourselves differently maybe this year than you did last year?
No, not really. I suppose for me anyway, and for the lads, I suppose last year's park now, and you move on. And I suppose you have to really reset your mind fairly quickly after Christmas, because the league campaign comes on you fairly quickly, and you have to get back training. So, like I said earlier on, there's different motivations within the group, and there's different challenges that we're going to face, or different things that we want to go after. So, I suppose it's hard to say. I think it's just a matter of getting back into it as a group together and moving forward. And like I said, if you're not in the best condition or in the mind frame going into the Munster Championship, you'll be out of it fairly quickly. So you can't afford to let your mind drift that much. So
and what's your own personal motivation, or even when you're doing rehab and lads are out in the field and you're not there with them? What were you looking forward to most, kind of getting back and playing? Was it April 19th, packed out Semple Stadium? What are you kind of visualising nearly when you're visualising getting back? Yeah,
that first round of the championship is always what you're visualising, I suppose. A lot goes on before that, I suppose, between the league and pre-season and stuff like that. But when you're going through that hard slog, or when you're in difficult times, maybe in the gym on your own or running on the field on your own, you're always thinking about Munster Championship here. And I suppose that's why everybody gets so excited about the Munster Championship. It's one of the best championships we have. So that's definitely what you're thinking about when you're going through tough times. And you'll be in that position come Munster Championship as well. So you're obviously in that mind frame that when you're going through the hard slog, just you know it'll be worth it when you're playing here in Semple Stadium.
Like when you're going to be here on 19th, it'll be packed out. There'll be 45,000. You're from Thurles yourself. Like, that must be unbelievable to have those big days here. Like, I nearly get goosebumps thinking about it. I'm going to be fortunate enough to commentate in the game, but you'll be out in the field playing in it. Like, it must be unbelievable motivator, just those kind of days.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I suppose we were coming up here, living in the town, and running up here to watch Tip and Cork and all those Munster Championship games when I was younger, and trying to sneak into the stand and sitting on the concrete steps. So you think about all that, but as a player, it's the best position to be in, and to be exposed to it and to be in the middle of the action is unbelievable. And I suppose it's only when you finish up and look back and see how lucky you are supposed to play in the championship. But it's definitely where you want to be as a player in a Tip jersey.
I have a few kind of random questions for you now. Like, after games at the minute, crowd of youngsters will run on and go over to you and look for autographs and everything. And you're all very good with your time with all the youngsters. Do you ever have to say that out loud to each other, that, right, lads, we're going to look after everyone here today, or is it just kind of a thing that all the lads kind of do?
No, it's just a thing, I suppose, that we do. And listen, they're the future of Tipperary and the people that you have to, I suppose, inspire. So it's always players done it for us. So it's just the way we're probably drilled, I suppose, as players, and it's within our culture, I suppose, within the GAA as well, to inspire all these younger people growing up. So listen, it's really nice to give back a bit of your time to them. They're the ones paying to go to all the matches. They're the ones supporting you when you're going through tough times as well. So it's nice just to give them back a bit of something. And then
another kind of random one. In the last couple of weeks, Brian Carroll of Offaly kind of revealed that Darren McCarthy's hurley is 30.5, a very, very small hurley. You're a hurley maker yourself. I suppose your thoughts on someone using that length hurley, and are you kind of particular at all in your hurley size or weight or anything like that?
I suppose we'll leave him be anyway. It's working for him, so give him all the 35.5-inch hurleys he wants.
30 and a half.
30 and a half. I use 34.5, so you might think we are particular, but it's just what you get used to, I suppose.
And you obviously make your own hurleys.
Yeah, I make my own hurleys, so
you can tweak it in certain ways if you want.
Yeah. So I think we're all particulars in our way, and we all like a different type of hurley. So Dara likes his little wooden spoon, and it's working for him. So we won't change that.
Yeah, and last couple, obviously, it's Cork now on April 19th. You've played each other so much in the last few years. Just your thoughts on this Cork team coming to town. Obviously, the last time they came here 2 years ago was a tough day for us all in Tipperary. So what's your kind of opinion coming into this game against Cork now?
Yeah, listen, it's going to be another tough challenge, and you see Cork throughout the league campaign, they've been unbelievable and very sharp, and I suppose after last year it's kind of a small rivalry that's building between the two teams now again, so it's going to be an unbelievable Munster Championship match. It's going to be high intensity and it's going to be tough, so something that we're really looking forward to, just get ourselves in the best position for going forward. And
after that then it's Waterford the following weekend. How does that 7-day period for one Munster Championship game to another, like I'm sure they take the toll on the body, like how do you kind of manage that recovery and that week? It must be fairly manic.
Yeah, it's something you definitely have to be aware of, and I suppose not just physically but mentally as well. You're preparing for a game so long, and then you have to switch to a different team the week after, so it's all about shifting your mentality towards it as well as physically. So recovery is big straight away after the game, and your focus turns very quickly to the following week.
Yeah, well, we can't wait for this one on April 19th. Very best luck, and thanks for talking to us, Ron.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
That was my conversation with Ronan Maher at the launch of the Munster Senior Hurling Championship. Of course, as we build up towards Sunday's game against Cork, a game you can hear live on Tip FM with thanks to Greenway Solar at 4 o'clock on Sunday. Well, last week we had the opportunity, the local media, to sit down and chat with Liam Cahill ahead of the Munster Championship. So we'll begin. We've a few clips to play out. The first one is just myself talking to Liam about a couple of things regarding the game, and then I'll come back in and play some other clips throughout different questions that were put to Liam. So let's hear my conversation with Liam Cahill last week.
Yeah, really happy with our work. Obviously with the new time in and that extra bit of light in the evenings, it gives us an opportunity from last week to get more hurling in under proper elements. So we've obviously gotten it back into Semple Stadium there now. The odd night we can before championship as well, which is a huge help. But in fairness, I suppose with the weather improving and the more light for the evening's training, it has helped us a lot to concentrate more on our hurling and our speed of hurling and making it more, I suppose, like championship pace. So we're happy with that from that perspective.
And last couple for me, like when we're looking ahead to a game against Cork, it's the game that everyone's been building up to. I'd imagine when the fixtures first come out, April 19th. For you yourself on these match day weekends, and like let's say the Saturday now before the match on the Sunday, how are you in those nights? Do you sleep well? Do you look forward to the next day, or how are you in those kind of? Is it different from when you were a player? Let's say.
It's not really the only difference, I suppose, Paul, is you have a lot more going on because you're just making sure that everything is where it needs to be, not just for yourself, being a player, obviously, but when you're a coach, manager, you're trying to make sure that you have all the various scenarios boxed off and that your team is in as good a place possible to perform. And I think, if our training stays the way it is leading into Sunday the 19th, I think we can all, put our heads in the pillow and say that we have all we can do done to lead into a performance on the day, and that's all you can work to. And obviously, every day is different. Some of these Munster Championship games can take a life of their own, as we all know. So no matter what you prepare for, anything can pop up on the day. But I think it's just a case when the work is done, you'll rest that little bit easier and look forward to the occasion. And it will be a great occasion in Thurles. Cork are big and huge crowds, and Tip are going to come in their numbers as well, and it's going to be a real ding-dong battle. and an important game for both sides. Obviously Cork coming out of the league final will want to fix a few issues maybe they feel they have leading out of Gaelic grounds last weekend, and ourselves will be coming obviously to gain all that important 2 points in your first home fixture. So really looking forward to it, Paul.
And Liam Cahill also spoke on just integrating new players into the squad this year and his overall thoughts kind of on the league and things like that. So let's hear that from Liam.
The performance in the league of other teams have kind of put them out there as being a little bit more advanced than ourselves, and I referenced it there after the Waterford game, that the turnover in this panel in the last 12 to 24 months has been huge. I think we tend to forget that a little bit, that there's a huge transition within the group still, albeit the majority of the players that will play on April 19th will be similar to the players that played the majority of the championship last year. But I think throughout our league campaign, like the integration of the under-20s from the All-Ireland winning team last year, trying to get exposure into them, and making sure that we were bringing maybe the more experienced players back at the right time, maybe didn't allow us to attack the league as aggressively as we'd like to, or maybe in a position to go ahead and put ourselves in to get to the latter stages of it. But I think in general we've navigated it quite well throughout the couple of months of the league to finish third and come into the Munster Championship with a good strong panel. I do believe our panel is a lot stronger end of this year than last year. I think there's a lot of youth in our squad. A lot of the youth maybe mightn't see match day 26 initially this year, but I think our squad, our in-house games are a lot more competitive, and that's no disrespect to anybody that hasn't been on our squad this year versus last year. It's just the joy, I suppose, of having that youth and I suppose young raw talent coming through, and we just hope that they'll find their feet now over the next period of time and serve Tipperary well over their careers, So, but it's definitely a more, I suppose, balanced panel this year with competitive wise anyway.
And Shane Brophy from the Nina Guardian just asked Liam Cahill about, was it more difficult kind of getting back up to speed this year, coming in as All-Ireland champions and everything that comes with that, compared to maybe this time in 2025, heading into the 2025 season?
It has been more difficult to get your early work done, Shane, definitely, because of the commitments that come with being successful last year. It is a huge ask of players and management to I suppose, work around what comes out of winning the All-Ireland from every aspect, from obviously getting out and about and meeting people through schools and various fundraisers and benefit meetings and what have you, to corporates I suppose side of things as well. So but I have to say, since we've come back at the end of November into our training, the players have shown a huge appetite, a real I suppose accountability to one another to say, look, there's nothing guaranteed here, but we're going to give ourselves every chance, and they've prepared really well. And the backroom team have been rolling in behind them, straight away. And complacency is something that hasn't been an issue for me. Again, I'd be the first to know, and I'd have that feeling in your gut if something wasn't right. But I do know over the last number of weeks that we've been preparing really well behind the scenes, that we're in a good place. The players are starting to come into really good form. Fitness wise is we're very happy where we're at, and we're just hoping now that over the last couple of sessions, through the last bits and pieces of the work we have to do before April 19th, that we come through unscathed and have a fit and healthy panel to pick from. And but it does come around quick, Shane, to answer your question. But then I suppose to fully answer it, we're happy we've done what we can do to be ready for what's coming. And
And Liam was also asked about motivations for the squad this year and whether they hear any of the outside noise or maybe any of the talk of other teams and things like that. But let's hear what Liam had to say about all that.
We just really, the whole cliche, I don't want to just call it as it is. We really just concentrate on ourselves. We're very privileged to be in the position we're in as All-Ireland champions. Like, we respect that, and we know what it's like to get there. Like, I've often said to the players, it's like flying this hot air balloon. It's taking huge oxygen to get that balloon off the ground, and it's only a little pinhole in it can have it come crashing back down. So our objective is really to keep that afloat as long as we can, and it always with us a case of making sure that we represent that jersey properly every day we play. And the days we haven't, it has weighed heavy, and a lot of players in that dressing room know and still has the taste of the days where things mightn't have worked out, and we just want to try and keep that at bay, every day we play, and make sure that we acquit ourselves well. And as I said, the home games are important. It's important that we get something out of this game next Sunday to launch the Munster Championship campaign, and at least be one of the three to come out of Munster. That's the whole objective.
And while this is Tipperary's first game in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship, we don't have long to wait until their second game on Sunday week. They'll be playing Waterford, and Liam Cahill was asked just about the blocks Tipperary have their fixtures in. So we have Cork, obviously, this weekend, then Waterford, then a week or two off, and then we have back-to-back games against Clare and against Limerick. So it's almost like two blocks of games, and Liam Cahill was just asked about how he's preparing for those two blocks.
Our block is Cork, Waterford, and over the last 4 weeks since the Kilkenny game in Thurles, we would be preparing for both teams, to be honest, because the turnaround is so quick. The minute, whatever the result will be next Sunday week, once we go back down that tunnel, whether we win, lose or draw, we have to turn the page the following evening, because we've only 6 days to prepare for Waterford. So we would have to do a certain amount of work over the last 4 weeks. Obviously, the majority would be on getting the result against Cork, but we definitely would have one eye in our training and some of our work that we'd have done with Waterford in mind as well.
So we are just going to take a quick ad break here on Tip FM, but we're going to have plenty more to talk about when it comes to Tipperary versus Cork. We'll hear from some of our analysts and the head of hurling in the GAA, Willie Maher, all that and more coming up after these. And you're very welcome back to part 2 of Across the Line here on Tip FM with myself, Paul Carroll, on this Friday, the 17th of April 2026. Now we're going to continue our look ahead to the big game on Sunday, Tipperary versus Cork in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship. And to do that, I'm joined on the line by a couple of our analysts. First, from the Tipperary Star, it's Enda Treacy. Enda, you're very welcome to the show. How are you getting on?
Good, Paul.
And we also have Cian Treacy, who will be joining myself on commentary on Sunday afternoon. Cian, how are things?
Good, Paul, thanks.
Yeah, well, it's unreal, lads, isn't it? Looking forward to the Munster Championship, the fact that it's here now and looking forward to it. Both teams named in the last 24 hours. We have 25 of the 30 players that started in last year's All-Ireland final will be lining out. Cork, 3 changes. In comes Barry Walsh, William Buckley and Tommy O'Connell in from the start. And for Tipperary, a first championship start for Oisin O'Donoghue, and similarly a first championship appearance even for Stephen Tobin. So, Enda, I'll come to yourself first. What kind of jumped out with that Tipperary team that was named? I suppose it's the inclusion of Stephen Tobin in from the start, and I suppose young hurler of the year, Darren McCarthy on the bench.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a nice blend. I think you have 13 of the starters from the All Ireland. Look, obviously Oisin, we kind of speculated when he was put wing back initially that maybe it was just trying something out, but it's obviously something that Liam has had in his head for a while. Maybe he did okay in the few league games that he featured in, but I just have it in my head that he was doing this with Cork in mind. I think Tip are going to play whatever you want to call it, a spare man back, a seventh body, a sweeper, and I think he's just looking for that attacking outlet then when we have the ball deeper. And Oisin obviously gives you that. We would have touted him maybe to be making his name there in the inside forward line this year, so he definitely has the ability to do that. So, the team, look, there's a good balance to it. I think there's still a lot of experience, even with Stefan and Oisin in the team. And look, obviously, Stefan, like, I mean, to go from being barely on the 24 for the under-20s last year to be starting senior this year is it's absolutely incredible stuff. He must be doing really well inside.
Yeah, it's unreal. Like, and he had that one league start against Watford where he got 4 points from play. So he's obviously, as Enda said, impressing. Cian, looking at the team, what have you kind of made of it all? Anything that surprised you, or what way do you think they'll set up come Sunday at 4 o'clock?
Yeah, it's an interesting team selection. The easy thing for Liam and his management team to do would have been to revert to the All-Ireland winning team of 2025. So again, as we've seen all the time with Liam Cahill's team selections, it's a brave selection. I think Stefan Tobin is a guy who's really excited Tipperary public. I thought he was outstanding in the couple of league games we saw him in, and he was brilliant for the under-20s against Cork in that first game in Semple Stadium. And he's a guy who's going to bring real energy, and he's an unknown quantity to this Cork team, which is brilliant. I think in terms of setup, you'd imagine Brian O'Mara would play, as Enda said, as that +1 or sweep or whatever way you want to call it. Craig Morgan will go into the half-back line. Conor Stakelum, I'd imagine, will go midfield. And as per the final last year, will pick up Tim O'Mahony. And then it'll be interesting. I think they're going to try and get 2 runners out onto the 2 Downies. And I think the runners, Andrew Ormond, and you could even see Stephen Tobin out in the half-forward line, maybe an Owen Downey to try and run the legs off him. So really exciting team selection. And apart from that, you really have, in rugby terms, that bomb squad on the bench with Darren McCarthy, Sam O'Farrell, Noel McGrath, Alan Tynan, Dara Stakelum, guys like this who can make a real impact. So really looking forward to Sunday. And just I think the inclusion, to go back to your original point, Paul, of Stephen Tobin is really one that will whet the appetite of Tipperary supporters.
Yeah, it's just so massive, like, to be making your debut in what's probably going to be 45,000 people in Semple Stadium for a Tip Cork match. As a, you know, he's under 19 this year, so he mightn't have turned 19 yet. I'm not sure of his exact age, whether he's 18 or 19, but he'll be under 20 again next year, so he is that age group. But Cork have made the couple of changes as well. Cian, Barry Walsh, under 20 star for them, is coming in to start at wing forward. William Buckley is impressed throughout the league. He starts at corner forward, and as we mentioned, Tommy O'Connell comes in the middle of the field. But a change for them is Kieran Joyce at full back, with Owen Downey pushing out to the half back line. What have you kind of made of that, and how do you see that kind of playing out?
Yeah, the Cork team selection is really interesting. And I think the interesting point about it is the question mark over this Cork team has constantly been, over the last 2-3 years, their backline. This is the same 6 backs and goalkeeper at the start of the All-Ireland final against Clare in 2024, where they conceded 321 in normal time, 329 in total in that game. It's the same 6 backs and goalkeeper that played the All-Ireland final. They conceded 327 to Tipperary. The same 6 backs and goalkeeper that played the league final against Limerick conceded 127. In that game, Limerick got off 45 shots, which is an incredible amount of shots on target in a game. And it's the one thing that we're always questioning about the Cork team is their backline. And Einstein said insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. On the point of Kieran Joyce at full back, he's been put in there to solidify that inside backline. But my big question about that is, in the league final, Aaron Gillan was very visibly going to town, not for the first time off Sean O'Donoghue. He went off injured. Jeremy Mellerick came on and marked and on fire Gillan. At what stage was Ben O'Connor and his management team going to say, we'll really test Kieran Joyce as a fullback, put him on Gillan, see exactly where we stand? So I think they're going into this game having had Kieran Joyce at fullback against Offaly, which they won quite comprehensively down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. They had him in the league final where he did fine, but not on the danger marquee man. And now he is going into a Munster Championship game where he's going to be picking up, I'd imagine, the reigning hurler of the year and John McGrath. So a lot of question marks over that Cork backline going into a huge championship match against Tipperary.
Yeah, and then the question marks on both sides, because I'm sure Cork equivalent radio stations are probably talking about maybe some of our frailties, but the question marks on either side kind of makes this really interesting game, because my mind's eye of this game, looking forward to it, is that we could be seeing a lot of goals and a lot of scores in Thurles on Sunday.
Look, that would be what you'd be thinking. I think look, the average that Tip were conceding was fairly high in the league. It was around 27, 28 points. Generally, that's going to be the total that you're going to have to be getting to in Munster hurling to win a lot of matches. So, like, I mean, look, Tip I think they're confident that even with 5 forwards, we've seen it in the All-Ireland last year, that the Cork backs are going to give you a lot of opportunities. And when you've Jason Ford, John McGrath, you don't have Darren McCarthy this time, but you have Stephen Tobin there that has real quality, Jake Morris, Andrew Ormond, that there is the attacking arsenal there to do a lot of damage to Cork. Now, obviously, look, Cork's front seven, front eight have the capabilities of putting up big scores as well. Starting young players and Barry Walsh and William Buckley are bringing a bit of a freshness to them. It's interesting. I would have assumed Seamus Harnedy would start, but look, Ben, obviously he was the worst kept secret that Barry Walsh was going to be playing. Obviously, when he wasn't made available for the under-20s on the week against Waterford. So look, there is question marks over both defences, but I think Tip will be happy that with an extra defender that they will be able to keep it fairly country back there, like Brian Hayes and Alan Connolly. If the ball's going into them, they're capable of doing real damage. So that's something Tip are going to be practical about, and they will have confidence that at the other end of the field, even with a player less, that, look, Cian said it, like Cork really aren't producing defenders at the moment. They're producing a lot of really good forwards underage, but like they're going back to the likes of Sean O'Donoghue, Niall O'Leary, that have had sketchy games in the past. And not even just that, but Ger Mellerick, Damien Cahalane on the bench, who've been there for the last 5-6 years, haven't nailed down a starting spot, even with the struggles that they've had in the defensive terms, probably says a lot for them. So, look, I think Tip will be pretty happy with what they have. And to be honest with you, Tip probably didn't have their entire full back line out in one piece for the whole league campaign as well, with Robert Doyle, Ronan Maher, and Mikey Breen there as well. So, with them starting back again, there'll be a bit more solidity in it.
And Cian, do you foresee similar matchups that we saw last year? Like, is it going to be Ronan Maher on Brian Hayes, no matter where Brian Hayes is, and Robert Doyle on Alan Connolly? Like, is that kind of nailed down in your mind's eye? Is what's going to play out in that terms of view?
I think so, Paul. I think if it's not broke, you're not going to try and fix it. Ronan was outstanding on Brian Hayes, who was the player of the championship, really going into that All-Ireland final. Robert Doyle, really good on Connolly. And I think when the two of those click, Connolly and Hayes, they're massive threats for any team. I think what's a little bit underappreciated in terms of Cork's forward line is the loss of Patrick Horgan. And I think back to the game in 2024 in Thurles, and he got 1-9 that day, but it's his movement and his leadership up front really created a lot of space and chances for the other two guys. And as a free taker, he's a huge loss as well. I saw his article in the Irish Examiner today, and he talked about needing a 90 to 95% free taker to win Munster Championship games. Not really sure as Alan Connolly that yet. We're very lucky in Tipperary that we have the likes of Jason Ford, obviously Darren McCarthy, John McGrath. We've really, really good free takers. But in terms of matchups, I think a lot of them, I think Tim O'Mahony will be tagged by Conor Stakelum again. He did an outstanding job on him in the All-Ireland final last year. So it's going to be interesting. Matchups all over the field in the Tipperary forward line. You'd imagine that it's going to be Kieran Joyce will pick up John McGrath and possibly Sean O'Donoghue on a pace matchup with Stephen Tobin. And that will leave Jason Ford and Niall O'Leary. That's the way it may, but we know in these big Munster Championship matches, someone will throw a spanner in the works and try something different.
Yeah, and I think that Sean O'Donoghue pick up Jason Ford in last year's All-Ireland final as well. So be interesting to see what way the Cork backs play that out with Ben O'Connor now as their manager and his first championship game in charge. And there's an interesting piece with John Fogarty in the Examiner this week about just records and things like that. Tip's home record in the round robin is quite poor. 3 wins, 3 draws and 6 losses. We've failed to beat Cork in our last 4 home games in the championship. You have to go back to 2016 when we beat them in the first round of the quarter final of the Munster Championship back in 2016. So we really owe Cork one in Thurles because we've had some dark days against them in Semple Stadium as of late.
Yeah, I think like so many players still involved from 2024. It's really tough day coming out with Thurles there. You just didn't know where Tipperary was going at the time. Really humbling loss. And that will still scare some of the players. Like Cork will obviously have massive motivation given the no-show in the second half of the All-Ireland final, and they ended up getting a bit of a trimming. But equally, it's still not that long ago since they ramped up to Thurles and put a big score on us as well, and a lot of those players are still involved, obviously. So it is a big thing, but look, it's obviously part of it's probably the disadvantage we have in terms that Thurles is a second home for nearly every Munster county. They've played so many games there. And and they have no problems getting there, and they'd have no hang-ups about playing in Thurles. So, but it's definitely something that needs addressing. All right, your home games are very important, and if you're not winning them, you're really up against it. Having to go to Walsh Park, having to go to Limerick this year as well. So, like, it is important to get those home games with 2 points under the belt if you're going to be thinking about progressing out of Munster.
Confident for Sunday, Enda?
Yeah, looking at the teams now, I would be more confident. I would have thought that Cork would have changed up a few backs. I thought maybe they would start Cormac O'Brien. Now that may yet happen. I think he's more of a marker than the likes of Mark Coleman and the two Downies, who defensively are a bit iffy, and they were iffy in the league final. But look, I think I would have backed Cork before the teams were named. I thought that maybe they'd knock us by a couple of points. But the closer I'm getting to it, I think that Tip are really set up for it well, and the team excites me. And we have real ammunition coming off the bench with Noel, Darren McCarthy, Sam O'Farrell, Alan Tynan, like some really good options off the bench. And if we are in the game in the last 15 or 20 minutes, I think we're going to sneak it. But like, I just couldn't envisage Cork playing as bad again as they did in the league final either. So look, it really is set up to be a really good game.
Cian, what was your final thoughts on it?
I have to be honest, going into the league final, I would have thought Cork were going to come to Thurles on a real revenge mission with that bit between their teeth. I don't think you can turn it on and off like a light switch. They were really poor in that league final. I totally get that maybe they weren't fully wound up for it, but it's a national final against a big rivalry with Limerick. Didn't perform, and I'm sure there's a lot of question marks in that Cork squad. And I just think Tipperary have been written off. They've been undervalued for their All-Ireland success, and we're a really proud county. And I think coming to Semple Stadium, albeit we having a brilliant record there, I think 25% home win rate, I just think that everything to me is pointing to Tipperary. It's going to be a really tight, titanic contest. Enda spoke about 2 years ago, 18-point humbling loss, and I just think all that is thrown into the mix, and I just think we're going to see the best version of Tipperary. I think we'll probably see the best version of Cork as well, but we're the All-Ireland champions in our own backyard. The team really excites me, as Enda said. Stephen Tobin playing, Liam has made the brave call there, and I think it's going to be a real arm wrestle. I think Cork really rely on shootout games, and if you keep turning every game you playing into a shootout, you'll get what you deserve eventually. Happened in the All-Ireland final. I think a shootout game would suit Tipperary. I think by a point or two, we might just get over the line.
Yeah, it's funny because you kind of feel like this is going to be a tight game, but the way these two teams have played, Tip won the All-Ireland final by 15 points. Cork bet Tip by around that in the championship last year, the Munster round robin game, albeit Tip down to 14. Cork have beaten as well in other years gone by as well. So there hasn't been a close game between the teams, but maybe we're due one, and maybe we'll get it this Sunday, 4 o'clock in FBD Semple Stadium. Live commentary here on Tip FM with thanks to Greenway Solar. Just quickly before we finish, lads, Clare and Waterford is the other game in Munster at 2 o'clock. Enda, who do you kind of fancy coming out of that one there?
You would be leaning towards Clare. Their starting team has a bit of freshness to it. I see Shane O'Donnell is named on the bench, but I would imagine he will be starting. Like, this is a must-win game for them at home against Waterford. They'll be really up against it if they don't get a win here. I think maybe the injection of the likes of Sean Rinn, Milo Farrell, Shane Meehan getting back to his best, I think they'll probably do it, but Waterford will be sticky.
And Cian, your thoughts on that one?
Clare at home in Ennis, albeit when you look at John Fogarty's piece, it would really open up your eyes to home teams. There's only just about a 50% win rate for home teams in the Munster Championship. But I think Ennis, although we play well down there, it is a hard place to go. I think Clare with the likes of obviously Tony Kelly, I'd imagine, as Enda said, Shane O'Donnell is going to start, even though he's not named in the official 15. I think they might just about have enough. But I think this is a game where whoever loses is in big danger. From a Water point of view, if they lose, having to face Tipperary 7 days later in Walsh Park. And from a Clare point of view, their next game is Limerick, so they have 2 home games to start. So you wouldn't like to be facing down the barrel of Limerick having lost to Water in that first round. So I think in many ways, I think whoever loses between Tipperary and Cork, there may be another day from. I'm not sure who loses between Clare and Water. Will they get it? Obviously, they will get another day, but will they still be in the championship?
Yeah, it's unbelievable, lads, isn't it? The Munster Championship is here, and just really can't wait for it all to get underway on Sunday afternoon. Lads, we'll talk to you down in Thurles on Sunday, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, really, really looking forward to this game on Sunday at 4 o'clock in FBD Semple Stadium. And a reminder, Greenway Solar sponsoring Tip FM's coverage of that commentary on Sunday at 4 o'clock. It's been a really busy few weeks and a busy few weeks ahead in the world of hurling, no doubt. And it is no doubt a very busy few weeks ahead and time ahead for the GA's national head of hurling, who's a Tipperary man, Willie Maher, the Ballingarry native. I caught up with Willie yesterday to talk through some of the new rules that we're going to see in effect in the Munster Championship this year, and all of the championships, all of Championship hurling, with some new rules with descent and things like that. So I caught up with Willie Maher yesterday to talk through that, and he also gave us his thoughts on Tipperary versus Cork. So let's hear from the national head of hurling, Willie Maher.
Great, Paul. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, great to have you on, Willie. And I suppose as we start now, Championship 2026, it's hurling at its very best, and we're all looking forward to Sunday, of course, in Thurles. A couple of rule changes maybe to look out for that we haven't seen in hurling before that were brought in during the year. The big one being the descent rule and moving the ball up 30 metres. I suppose it was probably a rule that has always been there. It was kind of 13 metres, I think, before, but you obviously saw the need to bring that in and make it that little bit more punishing.
Yeah, no, look, and I think it's to be very clear on this. We ran 8 roadshows last year, getting, I suppose, 1,300 or 1,400 people into a room, and I suppose just giving their feedback on hurling, and it came out loud and clear. Particularly in Cork one night, we were in Porty Keeve, and a dual referee stood up and said, look, well, I think we should adhere to the same principles that football have, and the new rules read descent. He said it's much easier to referee football matches now. There's an acceptance that, that there's no physical, verbal altercations between players and referees in football. So we wanted in hurling, and it came across loud and clear across a few other examples as well. So that's where it came from. It came from the ground up, from feedback on the ground. Just, I suppose, hurling is a game of honour, it's a game of respect, and I think it's very important that we adhere to I suppose, greater levels of control and respect, and that's why the descent rule is in.
Yeah, and it's been pretty popular in football as well over the course of the last year. One or two examples of maybe where it was misapplied, but you're probably going to have that. But another kind of very interesting one is the descent rule coming from officials on the sideline, kind of abusing officials or referees or whatever. The fact that that's moved up to a 21-yard free. And interestingly enough, we saw it in one of the Tip football games this year. If that happens at half-time, the second half actually starts with that free. So that's something I think people will have to look out for, because it's something that very well could happen in the heat of Munster Championship hurling.
And I think in my travels, and probably well documented at this stage, I heard the one somewhere in a league match in Tipperary, and
Yes.
the match was started with a 21-yard free, so it was really being adhered to that day. But look, I think it's important. I think it's important to give, I suppose, referees the chance to make the big decisions in games, particularly with this weekend with Sean Stack and Tip Cork and the other inter-county games that are going on. Huge pressure on referees and officials to get the decisions right, and I think they don't need to be listening to. And again, I was a manager, I was a player. I understand the frustrations of everyone, but I think we need to improve our code of conduct on the sideline and on the field. And I think, look, this is a real a game changer for the game, and I think there's a responsibility on referees to get it right as well. So I was actually at the under-20 match between Wexford and Kilkenny last Saturday, and there was 2 big decisions. The match was a draw match. There was verbals from the Kilkenny bench at one stage, and it cost Kilkenny a point. So, these things will be telling over the next couple of weeks, but I think it's important that we give referees the space, the time and the respect to make proper decisions and make our game better, which is what we're trying to do.
And one thing I was wondering as well is, like, when I think of Sunday now, and I'm really looking forward to it, like, you're hardly going to be able to hear yourself think, so a referee mightn't hear a sideline official roaring in at him in the hot and thrust of it in Thurles on Sunday. But if it's a fourth official, let's say, if he hears something or something is directed towards a fourth official, can he relay that message to the referee? Is that part of the framework of that rule?
Yeah, it is. It's a team of officials, so it's umpires, linesmen, referees, fourth officials. So I think it's the whole refereeing team or the official team. So I think, look, we've all seen examples over the years where things haven't been done in the right manner. I think this rule will clear up a lot of that, but there is a responsibility on referees then to make the correct decisions as much as possible. They're always human. There's always a mistake there as well, but at the same time, this is something for our game totally that will hopefully transcend right down to under 12, under 10, that there's a level of respect for the officials on our field and make our game great, because look, we have a fantastic game. No matter what anyone says, hurling is in great shape, but it's just important that we control and we mind the integrity and the honour that's there. And I think we're all we owe it to the game to give this everything and make our game better.
And you're in your role now just over a year, I think, or around that now as the head of hurling. How's that been? And John, I'd imagine the first year is a lot of learning, a lot of travelling, I'm sure, getting out there. What are you kind of targeting now for 2026?
Well, 2026 now will be about, I suppose, rolling out our hurling action plan nationally. Year one was very much around seeing what was going on, analysing, getting feedback from people on the ground through roadshows and through, I suppose, visiting clubs, counties all over the country. So I've got a really good feel of where we are as regards from a hurling perspective. I've segmented it into 3 different groups. So you have your strong, your Liam McCarthy counties, and you have 10 or 12 there. You have your middle tier counties, Joe Mack and down below. And then you have the emerging counties as regards, which you probably have 15 or 20 there. So different issues across the board there. And if you're looking at an emerging county, it's very much around experience and participation. Where you're looking at a Liam McCarthy team, it's that performance piece. And what are we doing to make sure we're giving as many players as possible the opportunity to be inter-county players and then to be better club players as a result of that. So there's a range of solutions in there, but we're working towards that, and we're working towards, I suppose, getting the support to volunteers on the ground to enable hurling to be played. And I gave a stat during the week on another podcast, and it's 50% of the country, 50% of the clubs in the country do not provide access to hurling. So that's a real target, and then trying to build the middle and trying to make sure that strong stays strong.
Yeah, and are you kind of happy with the speed this is happening at? It's obviously something like that is very long term, and it's about changing cultures in parts of the country where hurling isn't played. But are you happy with the speed things are progressing after your kind of first year working in this kind of space?
Yeah, Paul, I'm never happy, Paul, genuinely, and that's just the nature of the beast, and I probably have to slow down a bit. But at the same time, yeah, look, things are moving. This is long-term play. This is long-term stuff. Jared had said it as regards me being appointed and the Hurling Development Committee getting into full swing. It's a long-term play, and this, the fruits of this won't be seen for 5 or 10 years. So it's just very important we protect the great game we have and the excitement we have for this weekend, Tip and Cork and other games that are going on, for trying to build out that middle as regards to, and you look at the Kildare this weekend playing Wexford in the first round of the Leinster Championship. That's a real positive move, but we have to support Kildare every way we can to get more players through and keep the performance standards high. And as I said there, in I suppose that Tawn line, Dublin to Galway and up, it's about experience and how can we get more club hurling played in a lot of instances to allow more children and more people to experience the game of hurling. So yeah, I'm never happy, Paul, but at the same time I'm enthused with the reaction that I've got so far, and I just can't wait to keep it going now.
Yeah, we'll stay driving it on, Willie. And just finally, this game on Sunday, we had you on for our preview of the All-Ireland final last year inside in Thurles, and you were very kind of positive about Tipperary going in when maybe not a lot of people outside the county were all that positive going up to Croke Park last July. How do you think this game is going to go here now in Thurles on Sunday?
Yeah, no, just I suppose reflecting on July in the All-Ireland final, I did think that we have a really good team. We obviously won a great semi-final, and I think we were coming in very much under the radar with all the pressure on Cork. I think it's slightly changed now. I think obviously Cork, obviously after the All-Ireland, there's a lot of soul searching going on, and I think we will see a big reaction from Cork on the weekend, and that same element of surprise that we had in July, we probably won't have this time. But at the same time, it's Tip and Cork, it's Thurles, Liam Cahill at the helm, and his record over Cork at senior and 20 and 21 has been absolutely off the charts. So no better man to lead us to victory. But I think we're in good shape. I think we've a lot of I suppose there is a few unknowns, which is kind of at the start of every season, and I suppose what team will be picked. Will there be any changes from the 15 that lined out in the All-Ireland is always the question. We have a lot of good young players as regards who've got a lot of game time during the league, and it will be interesting to see what that lineup is. And I think the pressure is on Cork again, which is very unusual as All-Ireland champions, and they're coming to Thurles. So look, like yourself, I'm like a child at Christmas. I can't wait for Sunday morning.
Yeah, well, luckily enough, we don't have too much longer to wait. Willie Maher, head of hurling in the GA, thanks a million for joining us on the show, and enjoy the game on Sunday.
Pleasure, Paul. Thanks again.
And that was my conversation yesterday with head of hurling Willie Maher, looking ahead to the game obviously on Sunday and just about some of those new rules that are coming into effect for the first time in Championship hurling. Well, Sunday is a double header in FBD Semple Stadium, and at 2 o'clock in Thurles on Sunday, Tipperary take on Cork in the Munster Senior Camogie quarter-final. Massive game for both sides, and the first championship outing for Tipperary manager James Heffernan, while all-star defender Mairead Eviston was put forward at the launch of the Munster Championship. So let's hear my conversation with Tipperary defender Mairead Eviston now. Here with Tipperary Camogie player Mairead Eviston. Mairead, great to talk to you. Reflecting back on the league, I suppose, for yourselves this year, how would you look back? It was probably maybe slow starts, but a brilliant kind of finish, and probably carried a bit of momentum now after it.
Yeah, definitely. I think we progressed nicely. You know, we started off with a really good performance up in Antrim, and I suppose hit a dip then after that. But I think, you know, our Cork performance now and our Waterford performance, that's definitely a near true reflection of what we're capable of. So we're not quite there at 100% yet, but you know, it's still March time. You know, we're building nicely now for Championship. Yeah, and
it kind of turned on that. The Cork game, the second half was brilliant performance, and he carried that through to the Waterford game. So it's probably it feels like in a good place at the moment now, I'd imagine, in training.
Yeah, definitely, and like, you know, fighting for places as well. I suppose everybody feels like it's a clean slate this year. So everyone's fighting for places, which is a great position to be in. And then as a result, we're getting to try things in matches as well. People are getting an opportunity in different positions to put their hand up for that starting jersey. So. But yeah, I think everyone is definitely happy, and we're going into a nice 2-3 week block now heading into Munster Championship, where I know training's going to be hell for leather.
And new management this year with James Heffernan. How's all that been with the new setup he's brought? Yeah,
incredible. In fairness, the lads they've really laid out really good solid foundations for us to, I suppose, for us to really achieve our best. You know, training is hard. Anything that we've asked for as players that we need, you know, for training, S&C, even recovery, like he's provided. So he's really brought, I suppose, a high level of standard this year, and you know, he's asking then of us to raise our standards as well as players. So, you know, I think the league was probably very valuable to him. So yeah, I think, you know, we're very, very excited to get into the Championship now.
And yourself, you've kind of been operating more so on the kind of full back line this year. You were all-star wing back last year. So how have you found that kind of transition? Full back is kind of nearly a specialist position in the modern game. So how have you found that?
Yeah, not too bad. Like I'm lucky that, you know, 2 years ago I've played at Tree there. So I had a bit of experience there. You know, you probably have a little bit of added pressure, I suppose. You can't really take the eye off or concentration at all. But, you know, I kind of relish the challenge as well. You know, I very much aware that a lot of probably the best forwards are coming into the full forward line. So, you know, I kind of enjoy seeing some of them come towards me, see what I can do. But yeah, look, it is a change. But I suppose for me anyway, wherever the lads want me to be, I'll do exactly that.
And the team this year, a few of the younger players have started to transition through. The likes of Cueva Stakelum has really caught the eye this year with her performances. Young players coming through like that always gives a boost to a panel, but someone of her standard must be very exciting to kind of have in there.
Yeah, it is. It's massive. And like, you know, even as I said, the competition for places like the likes of Cueva, even Lucy Purcell there last week, even, you know, girls like Amy Quinlisk, I suppose, playing an absolute stormer cornerback, like Celine Guinan is flying it as well. So like, there's a lot of girls, I suppose, that are after getting an awful lot of league time that might not have gotten match time before. And you know, it's bringing more energy into not only our matches but even our training. You can't rest on your laurels at all. And you know, the likes of Cueva, like the skill that she has is phenomenal. You know, I'm not looking forward to marking her in training.
You don't like seeing her coming into marking in training.
So it's great.
Yeah, and another Cueva is Cueva McCarthy, captain this year. She's been operating at centre back in front of you, and she seems to have taken on that centre back role very well as well.
Yeah, and like she's an incredible force when she's going forward as well. Like, you know, her runs have been so powerful. They're so hard to defend, and you know, absolutely delighted for her to get the nod this year for the captaincy, and you know, she's really taken it on. A great leader, I suppose, in our dressing room, great role model for the younger girls coming through as well. So yeah, it's great to have Cueva playing out in front of me and flying it.
And like, as we're looking forward to the Munster Championship now, you have Cork in the first or in the quarter final. It's on here in Semple Stadium before the Tip Cork game on April 19th. Like, that's just going to be an incredible occasion. It's probably easy to motivate yourself for these hard trainings for what's to come.
Yeah, look at it, and like playing Cork first round as well, you know, no better, I suppose, opposition to be up against as well. But you know, coming here to Semple Stadium and playing before the lads, like, it's an incredible opportunity for us, and one that we don't get that often as well. So we're very much aware of how big of an opportunity it is for us. And you know, we had a few matches last year, like before, we're playing Kilkenny and Croke Park as well, and like the energy and the atmosphere in there is just incredible, and it plays a massive role in our games as well. So you know, it's great excitement, I suppose, leading up to it, and like you said, there's no lack of motivation for it. Yeah.
And that was, reflecting back on that Kilkenny game, like, that was special last year, went to extra time, like massive crowd there for that extra time period to see Clodagh's goal and things like that. Like, that must have been class to play in an atmosphere like that.
No, it's unreal, and like you could notice the difference as well from the start of the game to the end of the game. Like, as people filtered in, like it really added to the game. And like that, when Clodagh scored the goal, you know, I nearly heard it from the stand before I saw the green flag, you know. But you know, all that drives you on, and it, I suppose, plays with your emotions as well and how you play the game. So like, it is, and it's really important to us as well to have that football for matches. So you know, here in a couple of weeks' time, if we could get people in for the start of the match, you know, like, I know it's going to be a cracker, and Kamogi is going from strength to strength, so it'd be great to get everyone in for it.
Yeah, and if your game down in Páirc Uí Rinn is anything to go by, the drawn game there against Cork, it should be a great game. But to look ahead now a bit further, the All-Ireland Championship is a new format this year, so you know, you're going to be up against like all the best teams. There's going to be kind of no kind of game that you're going to be expected to win handy anymore. How have you found, or what you make of that new format, and just talk us through it a bit, I suppose? Yeah,
like it's very hard to see what way it'll go, I suppose, before we've had one season of it. But I suppose from our perspective, we're playing every match, we're playing against the top teams, and you know, that's the only way that you're really going to progress. You know, I suppose in previous years you're going out playing a few championship matches knowing you're going to get the win, and you can probably get a little bit carried away about where you are performance-wise with those. So this year now, you know, you can't rest on your laurels. I know everyone is guaranteed a quarter-final win, but you know, to top the group you get that semi-final, and that's what everyone's going to go for. And you know, some people might question if, you know, people are going to have things to play for, but I don't think any of those top teams are going to want to lose to anyone on any given day. So yeah, it's really looking forward to it now. Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, but we've a lot of camogie to play before we get to then. So the very best of luck to you on April 19th, and thanks for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
That was my conversation with Tipperary defender Mairead Eviston at the launch of the Munster Senior Camogie Championship. 2 o'clock on Sunday, throw-in time for that game against Cork, Munster Senior Camogie quarter-final. To look ahead to that and the rest of what is a very busy weekend of camogie in the county, I'm joined on the line by Tipperary Camogie Piro Geraldine Kinane. Geraldine, you're very welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, massive weekend of camogie in the county, Geraldine. We'll start, obviously, we have the games on Sunday, but we do have a game on Saturday that I just wanted to mention before we get started. Tipperary against Galway, Saturday, 4 o'clock in Crinkle-GA in Offaly. This is the under-16 All-Ireland semi-final, so always good to see Tipperary underage teams progressing well in the A Championship.
Yeah, it certainly is, and this is a very impressive group of players. They had great success at under 14, and many of them are underage again next year for under 16. But they've already won the Munster Championship, won their first couple of rounds in the All-Ireland series, were qualified for a semi-final, lost their last 2 games, but I don't think they'll read too much into that. You know, they knew they had qualified, and you know, it was, I suppose, looking at the full squad and change things around. But they'll go full strength tomorrow against Galway in Crinkle-GA at 3 p.m. throw-in now, and or 4 p.m. throw-in, sorry, and hopefully they'll have enough to beat Galway and get to an All-Ireland final. But either way, they've had a great season today, picking up the Munster title, especially with such a young squad.
And if we look ahead then to Sunday, obviously we have the big one in Semple Stadium at 2 o'clock against Cork in the senior Munster quarter-final. Before we get to that, and we heard from Mairead Eviston earlier in the show, the under-23s are taking on Galway on Sunday at 11:45 in the County Camogie grounds in the Rag. That game was originally fixed for the same time as the senior game at 2 o'clock, but it seems, Geraldine, that wise heads have prevailed there.
Yeah, look, in fairness, we pushed a Camogie Association to change that fixture, and Galway were in agreement as well, so it's great now. While it's going to be a busy and packed day, at least they're not clashing. So look, it's a massive game for Tipperary. I suppose they drew with Dublin the first day out in the All-Ireland series, which was probably a bit of a setback. Bounced back with a great win over Waterford, and then drew with Kilkenny last weekend. So every game is so competitive, and they'll go into this game on Sunday, I suppose, with confidence. I think they'll take a lot from great heart from the Kilkenny game. It was awful conditions, and they showed huge battling spirit. Probably not score maybe as much as we'd like to. Maybe our scoring efficiency needs to improve. But I think if that clicks on Sunday, we could have enough to beat Galway, and it would see us into an All-Ireland semi-final as well. So look, fingers crossed again. Another big day out for that group of players and for the management team, and hopefully we'll get a good crowd to go to the Rag on their way into Semple Stadium. Yeah,
and that under-23 team are undefeated, I think, this year, coming through as Munster champions, and then undefeated in their 3 games, as you lined out there, in the All-Ireland series so far. So a win there would see them into an All-Ireland semi-final. But all roads lead to Semple Stadium on Sunday, and at 2 o'clock Tipperary take on Cork in that Munster quarter-final. The winners go on to Páirc Uí Chaoimh the following weekend to play against Limerick before the Cork and Limerick hurlers. So that's another big occasion lined up for the winners of this game on Sunday. Joe, I haven't seen the team anyway as I'm talking to you now, Geraldine, but Tipperary should have some bodies back, and it's a first championship game for new manager James Heffernan. And while the Munster Championship doesn't link with the All-Ireland series like it does in the men's game, this is a massive game for both teams in Semple Stadium in front of a big crowd, and a good chance as well for new management to see players at that level.
Yeah, look, it's a massive game. I suppose it's the Munster J and Kamogi have been coming together for the last couple of years with double header, but I don't think it has worked out as well as this one. Sometimes it's not the same two counties playing it in both codes, but on this occasion, Semple Stadium, the All-Ireland champions Tipperary against Cork in a repeat of the last year's All-Ireland hurling final. Then you have Tip and Cork in the Kamogi. They met in the league already this year, and it was a draw. So look, I suppose both counties will see a great opportunity. Both teams will go in confident in both codes, thinking they can beat each other, I suppose. And that's what makes it such, a huge, I suppose, a fixture, because it's a really 50-50 game in both games, and there's so much on the line, obviously. For Tipperary, for the Camogie, I suppose, like you said, it's not linked to the All-Ireland series, and the All-Ireland series, I suppose, bigger prizes down the line there. But I think probably more so than ever, this Munster Championship is really important for this group. Like I said, it's a new management team, a lot of new young players. The league, I suppose results weren't the be all and end all. It was still finding their feet, but I suppose at this stage you'd be hoping that they're very close to their starting 15 come All-Ireland Championship, and it's all about getting a performance now and getting a bit of momentum and getting a win under their belt. It would be great if they could beat Cork, another big day out then the following week. You can't beat playing obviously in big stadiums with big crowds and the hype and the buzz that comes with Munster Championship, and it's just fantastic. And it'll be a great family day out as well. We have likes of Cueva Stakelin with the Camogie and Conor and Dara with the hurling, Emer McGrath and her cousins, the Noel and John and Brian with the hurling, and Mairead Eviston cousins as well. So look, it's a huge occasion, and it's I suppose the excitement is really building now.
Yeah, can't wait. I just can't wait to even be in Semple Stadium early on Sunday for both of these games. Just on Cork, they were beaten in the All-Ireland final last year against Galway, but how, are they, I've kind of heard in passing that they have a few players that maybe aren't there anymore, and they've kind of a newer look to their team. How are they kind of fixed heading into Championship 2026?
Yeah, look, they seem to be without a lot of their experienced players. I suppose Aisling Thompson is injured, Hannah Looney is committed to the Aussie rules, and there's, I suppose, a few other players retirements and stuff like that. I suppose we still don't know. I suppose till we see the squad announced maybe later on today or tomorrow, because there's talks with players back now in training the last few weeks. So look, they are probably a bit of rebuilding there. I mean, they looked fantastic last year, and obviously only didn't came a cropper maybe a bit in the All Ireland final, but certainly in the league they haven't been as formidable. I mean, losing to Antrim, as good as Antrim are, or as progressive as they are, that still was a huge shock. I've never seen a Cork team, lose to likes of Antrim before. So that was a huge shock. But maybe that was the kick that they needed to kind of to reassess and get going again and commit again, and maybe you just don't know, maybe from since then they've turned things around in training, but certainly you would have said that loss was a big shock, and things didn't sound as good as they usually are, with, I suppose, with down a few players. But look, that's all in the past. A few weeks have passed since then. I'm sure they've done a couple of weeks of really good training, and players back in contention, and they certainly aren't coming up to Semple Stadium looking to be beaten by Tipperary. They would probably feel they always have the upper hand of Tip, and they probably have in the past, but they would have been disappointed in the league. They were 8 points up at half time when we came back to draw with them, so they would definitely have been disappointed with that, and disappointed with some of the other results in the league. But I'm sure they're going to use this Munster Championship to I suppose, to put that behind them and get ready for the All Ireland series.
Well, the last time the Tip camogie team and the Tip hurlers played on the same day in the same stadium was up in Croke Park last year. The camogies had the quarter-final against Kilkenny, and the senior hurlers had that semi-final against Kilkenny, and that was a brilliant day. So if we've anything close to that on Sunday afternoon in Semple Stadium, we'll all walk out at Thurles very, very happy come Sunday evening. Geraldine, enjoy the games over the weekend, and thanks for joining us on the show.
Thanks, Paul.
Right, we're going to take a quick ad break here on Across the Line, but stick around. We still have plenty more sport to look forward to, including rugby, greyhound racing and more, coming up after these. And you're very welcome back to the third and final part of Across the Line here on Tip FM with myself, Paul Carroll, on this Friday the 17th of April 2026. Across the Line coming to you all in association with the Premier Credit Union in Thurles. While it is a big weekend of hurling and camogie, we've talked through all that on this extended edition of the show, but tomorrow marks a massive day for Clonmel Rugby Club. They are in the AIL Division 2C semi-final. They welcome Dolphin to Ardguiha at 2:30. To look ahead to that game, delighted to say joined on the line by Clonmel RFC's first team manager, Joe Winston. Joe, you're very welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul.
Massive game on Saturday, Joe. 2:30 in Ardguiha, Division 2C of the AIL semi-final, home semi-final for Clonmel against Dolphin at 2:30, as I said, at home in Ardguiha. Massive game, Joe. Probably, if you look at maybe you can kind of put it up to me in terms of how big of a game this is in the history of Clonmel Rugby Club.
It's probably up there in the top 3 games ever for the club. I mean, at the start of the season, our aim was to get into the playoffs at least, and we've achieved that, and we've gone one better by topping the league, and any other year that would deem promotion. But because they're splitting the bottom 2 divisions into North and South, we'll still be playing a lot of the same teams next year, and it'll be a little bit harder to get into Division 2A. But we're pleased with the way the season's gone, and very hopeful that we get a result on Saturday.
Yeah, it's been an incredible season, and I was just kind of looking back on the table and the results before we came on, and like you've had 9 home games so far this year. You've won 8 of them in the league. It's just the Dolphin game is the one that caught you, and Dolphin is who you're going to be playing on Saturday. Like it's been incredible, and a lot of those games, looking back, particularly in the first half of the season, 1-score games, real kind of entertaining affairs where you're getting over the line. So it's been a good year to be following Clonmel Rugby Club, particularly in Clonmel.
Absolutely, not very good for the heart at times, but
I'm sure.
Overall, very good, and it shows resilience in the team to keep going to the very end, and that's something that we've been achieving for the last couple of years, is staying in the fight all the way to the end. So we're pleased with that, and hopefully we'll transfer to Saturday for us.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, against Dolphin, you finished top of the league, Dolphin finished 4th, but Dolphin beat you at home and away. They've been on a really good run of form to end the season. They've actually won their last 5 games in a row, Dolphin. So you're going up against probably maybe the form team in the division, despite them finishing 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. as you say, they're on a run of about 5, I think, from about the end of January. We think they probably got a few players back from injury and maybe brought 1 or 2 in during the transfer window. But it was like with that game in Clonmel a couple of weeks ago, that we stayed in the fight. They were a very good team, that can't be denied. But we matched them in a lot of places. Not making excuses, we were missing a couple of players, so we had a very, very young front row.
Yeah.
We probably got taught a couple of lessons by the more experienced props, but they didn't let us down either. So we're very pleased with that. And overall, we've still got a very young team. So this all goes well for the future for us. We can hold on to them and they don't get snaffled away by some senior club. So we're very pleased with that. And hopefully we'll have learned a few lessons from that game against Dolphin in Clonmel.
Yeah, because that game was only on the 28th of March. Clonmel 21, Dolphin 33. So you're very familiar with them. You've played them quite a lot the last couple of years. But just reading the reports on that game, they seem to have a particularly strong pack that I'm sure you're kind of focusing in on, and they opted for scrums and that from penalties a lot in that game. So it's obviously a strength that they do have. Yeah,
that's what we have a couple of more experienced forwards and front rows coming back into the mix, but we'll also be able to bring on these young fellas if we need them, and they will be a lot wiser after the last day. And so some of them are really putting their hands up, so we have to be pleased with that. But as I say, we learned from what happened a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and discipline, I think, was another issue on that game with a number of penalties conceded. But when it comes to this stage of the season, Joe, and it's gone from league rugby to knockout rugby, and it's always kind of said cup rugby, it's almost kind of played differently. You kind of take the penalties and kicks at goal maybe a little bit more often than you would in a league game. So is that a real thing? Is that a tangible thing?
It's a real thing. We had experience of that now when we won the Munster Senior Plates, which is again the first senior trophy in the club's history. And in that game, when we got kickable penalties, we took them, and we have a very reliable kicker in Joey O'Connor, who was the top point scorer in 2C this season, and top point scorer last year overall in the AIL. So it will be a case of take your chances when you get them. There's no bonus points for tries, so it's all about the win.
Yeah, and that leads to really entertaining rugby, and as has been the norm, really, looking at the results in Clonmel so far this year. But I'm sure from your own point of view, you'd take just any sort of win rather than any sort of entertainment in Ardguiha on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely, because we have the added bonus that if we do win, we'll be at home against the winners of Victor Rangers and Thomond. So we have all the incentives to hang in there and to get the result and hopefully go on. And we've bet Victor Rangers in Clonmel, we've bet Thomond home and away. So if we can get past Saturday, then we'd be fairly we're not confident, but hopeful of going all the way.
Yeah, so it is Dolphin 2:30 on Saturday in Ardguiha. Yeah. I'm sure there'll be a good turnout for that game in Clonmel.
Could I just say, as many people from Clonmel that could come up and support us, it would be greatly appreciated, because Dolphin, like they did a couple of weeks ago, will have a large travelling support. So we want as many people as possible up there to make sure that Dolphin know they're playing in Clonmel.
Yeah, well said, Joe. Joe, we wish you the very best of luck. It's been a great season for Clonmel Rugby Club, and hopefully come Saturday afternoon we'll all be looking ahead to a Division 2C final. So very best of luck on Saturday.
Thanks very much, Paul.
And that was Joe Winston looking ahead to that massive game for Clonmel Rugby Club on Saturday at 2:30. On Saturday at 7:45 over in Treviso, Munster take on Benetton in the URC. Tipperary's Diarmuid Barnes starting for Munster there, with Brian Gleeson back in amongst the replacements after his return from return to play protocols. So the very best of luck there. Also in action over the course of the weekend, Dorothy Wall on the bench for Ireland in the Women's Six Nations. They take on Italy in the Dexcom Stadium. And elsewhere in the world of sport in Tipperary this weekend, also one big game in the NTNDL Premier Division this weekend. Shinrone are at home to Ballymackey, and on Sunday, if Shinrone can win that game, they'd go 3 points clear with one game to go. So it's a really big finale to the NTNDL Premier Division this year. So that game, I think it was fixed for last weekend, but will be taking place this Sunday. I've seen different kick-off times, either 2 o'clock or 11 a.m, so you'll have to follow up with either of the teams to get an exact kick-off time, but that is a big one there. Shinrone at home to Ballymackey on Sunday morning. But now, a little bit later than usual on a Friday evening, it's time to talk dogs with Barry Drake.
Tip FM's Greyhound News Update with Limerick Greyhound Stadium. Enjoy top-class racing at the Con and Annie Kirby Memorial each Saturday night and check out their dinner or group packages.
There's another action-packed weekend of greyhound racing with plenty of top-class racing action to look forward to all over the country. But all roads lead to Limerick Greyhound Stadium on Saturday night for one of the biggest nights on the racing calendar. Of course, it'll be live on Virgin Media from 9 till 10. But no doubt there will be a massive crowd in attendance once again as the showpiece event, the Con and Annie Kirby Memorial Final for 2026 is due off at 24 minutes past 9. Of course, it's sponsored by JP and Noreen McManus and the McManus family, of course, who've been wonderful supporters of greyhound racing and in particular this event in recent years. It's an unbelievable competition over the course of the last couple of weeks. We've seen plenty of sensational performances from the hottest prospects in the world of greyhound racing, some sensational youngsters on show in recent times. Big Tipperary interest in the final. They're represented with 4 of the 6 finalists because champion trainer Graham Holland, based in Golden, is doubly represented with both Beano's Yank in trap number 2, who's owned by the Pups and Points Syndicate in Kilworth, and also Bocco's Gold, who's owned in the UK by the Jolly Good Company Syndicate. Tipperary trainer Michael O'Donovan is doubly represented with Bouncing Monarch, who's owned by David Fradgley in the UK, and also he's training trap number 5 Ballycowan Frank, who's owned by Debbie Doyle and Dean Harper. Of course, Dean Harper based down in Cove in County Cork. The other 2 representatives in the final are 4 Ballymac Setanta, who is the anti-post favourite for outright glory for Kerry trainer Liam Dowling, and trap number 6 JK Fly, who's trained by Paul Hennessy down in Goran in County Kilkenny and owned in South Limerick by Carol O'Riordan. As I said, it's going to be an unbelievable race on Saturday night, and in terms of predicting a winner, I'm going with trap number 3 Bocco's Gold, who has been brilliant in recent outings, back-to-back wins in 27.92 and 27.89, of course, unbeaten in the competition, but it's the last 2 performances, sub-28 second runs. Ballymac Setanta is another one that's delivered back-to-back winning performances going under the magical 28 second barrier, but as I said, all eyes will be on the big final there on Saturday night at 9:24, and as I said, there's going to be an unbelievable crowd there in Limerick, and it's trap number 3 Bocco's Gold for me for champion trainer Graham Holland. Switching our attentions back to the local action and looking ahead to Clonmel Greyhound Stadium tonight, of course, the first race due off there at 7:30. The Surly O'Dornan Memorial A3, A4 Guys and Dolls competition got off to a flying start last weekend, and expecting more big performances in that competition. Grantstown Taz is a greyhound we spoke about last week, trained in Tipperary by Thomas O'Donovan. That one will be expected to record back-to-back winning performances there in the opening heat. Also in race number 6, keep an eye on Kevinsford Trump, who's owned by Pater Kinane in Thurles and trained locally in Tipperary by Pádraig Campion. That one delivered a stunning 28.93 winning performance on the first time of asking, and going on that run looks like one that has a big future ahead. Also going back to the Surly O'Dornan Memorial A3, A4 Guys and Dolls second round in heat number 3, keep an eye on trap number 5 Born Sunny for Jennifer O'Donnell, a 29.22 winning performance last week. Should take the world of beating. Next best there for me is Miss Jelly Beans, who caught the eye in defeat last time for Clonmel trainer Kevin McLean. So as I said, a brilliant card there in Clonmel tonight. Thurles Greyhound Stadium, Saturday night, 7 o'clock start. There's an A1, A2 contest down for decision in race number 3. It's featuring some really good sorts. I'm going with trap number 6, Oriental Diamond, for the organised K Syndicate in Thurles. 5 wins from 13 career starts. Was a nice winner around Kilkenny last time. time when clocking 29.76 and looks capable of recording back-to-back winning performance. While finally switching our attentions to the usual Sunday night racing programme at the Clonmel Greyhound Stadium, where the first, of course, is due off at 6:04. In terms of predicting winners, well, keep an eye on Clontanny Anna in race number 5. This one for the kennel of Anthony Noonan in Thurles. It's been running well in defeat in recent outings. It's a powerful performer, and I think that can finish best of all to land the spoils. Elsewhere on the card on Sunday night, switching our attentions down to race number 10. This is an A3 contest with a couple of sorts that have been in fine winning form in recent outings. I'm going to take a chance with trap number 5, Redzer Rua, who ran well in defeat last time and looks capable of slipping around in front, and if that's the case, should take plenty of catching. This one, of course, is trained locally by Aaron O'Hanlon. So as I said, it's a busy and exciting weekend of greyhound racing with all eyes on Limerick Greyhound Stadium on Saturday night, featuring the final of the €80,000 to the winner, Con and Annie Kirby Memorial Final. It promises to be another top-class night of racing action.
And many thanks, as always, to Barry Drake for his comprehensive rundown on what's happening in the world of greyhound racing, both here in Tipperary and further afield as well. Well, that is just about all we have time for on this week's edition of Across the Line. And a big thank you to all the guests for making the show possible. And a reminder, once again, we will have full live commentary of Tipperary versus Cork in the Munster Senior Hurling Championship on Sunday. 4 o'clock throw-in time, as if you didn't know already, but that is coming in association with Greenway Solar. I'll be in Semple Stadium good nearly on Sunday, and I'll be providing updates over the radio as well of the Tipperary and Cork Senior Camogie quarter-final, which gets underway at 2 o'clock in FBD Semple Stadium on Sunday. But I would recommend getting in to see that game if you can. Some really, really talented players there for Tipperary, and their support, as we've heard throughout the show, would make a huge, huge difference. If you can get into Thurles early on Sunday, I surely would recommend that. And just to reminder as well, our big thank you to Carol Power for allowing me to the extra time on this week's edition of Across the Line to eat into some of her show to allow to do a bigger preview of the games on Sunday. So big thanks to Carol Power there as well. And a reminder, Ronan Quirk, speaking of extra time, Ronan Quirk will be looking back on the weekend's sporting action on an unmissable extra time Monday evening, 7 o'clock there. So I will be back on the airwaves on Sunday afternoon. Carol Power is coming up for this week's edition of Across the Line. It's bye for now.